Welcome back. I appreciate you guys for going ahead and following me and subscribing. And I want to put out one more video tonight on multi-factor authentication. It's one of those things where often the threat actors get through because there's not multi-factors in place to try to prevent that from happening. So I want to kind of demystify, I hate using that word, it's such a buzzword, but kind of what is multi-factor authentication? What does it mean in its totality? And why does it support the statistic that was thrown around that, over 90% of all attacks involve the lack of two-factor authentication? I mean, we hear the big ones in the news where they, stole a two-factor token and, did some amazing tradecraft to make that happen. But in reality, I think most people just don't have two-factor enabled. So we'll go ahead and without further ado, get started. Thank you so much for being here. And as long as we can see my slide and my nice, pretty new watermark, thanks to Michelle, I guess I can't point it the correct direction. But multi-factor authentication, we've all seen it. We get the text message. We have the push notification to our phone, the bank RSA token that's been around forever. But essentially, it's a second factor. What do they mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and define it. On the left, we have Miss Sally Ride. And what are the types of authentication factors? Well, we have the identity. That's going to be your email address, your username, whatever that may be. The factors after that are what they're talking about when they say multi-factor. So type 1 is something you know, right? Now you know something. See, ironic. And that's going to be a password, a PIN, a date of birth, whatever it is that you have to put in your head and then call upon it as a way, as something private that you bring up, to distribute. So, and prove that you are you. So another type is going to be a type 2, and that's going to identify something you have. Everybody remembers the RSA token whenever you've done banks or wire transfers. It's also going to be a text message or a call or a push or a TOTP calculation or, HOTP, different methodologies that actually deliver that second something you must have upon your possession in order to do this and move forward. Security key is an example. Then there's something you are, right? So the iris, not the retina, as I remember, in the sense that the retina, actually you could determine a few things about health through the retina, like I think it's going to be like glaucoma and cataracts. I'm not a doctor. I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express, but the point being is that they want to stick to things that don't contain PHI. So the iris or a palm vein scan or a fingerprint scan, something you are is going to be that kind of thing. So those are your three different types of authentication. And when they talk about multi-factor or two-factor, type 1 is usually what they're talking about, a password, and type 2, which is going to be, a text message or a call. And each of them have their own challenges and benefits. But multi-factor means incorporating several of each potentially, right? So something you have that can only be used with something you know, like a PIN with a two-factor YubiKey or something, or, a U2F or FIDO2. So let's go through kind of what does it mean, right? So let's go through a normal transaction. So, hi, I'm Sally. She presents herself to a website and says, my username is sallyrides@rocket.ship, right? The website responds and says, hi, Sally Rides at rocket.ship. Please enter your password, in which case Sally does successfully, maybe after 2 or 3 wrong attempts if you're me. And then she says, hey, great, you're in. Fantastic. It's great to see you here. Please proceed. That's great when that's Sally. What about when it's not Sally? What about when it's a threat actor? So, hi, I'm Sally. My username is sallyrides@rocket.ship. Liar. The website says, hey, what's up? Put in password correctly, probably accurately, because they're doing it with a script, so they're not even going to mistype it, which is actually something you could do as a multi-factor down the road. We'll kind of talk about that. But awesome, you're in. Fantastic. The threat actor makes a lot of money. They are very happy. They now have a suit. It looks like a very nice suit. And, Sally doesn't know, probably for a while, depending on the kind of assets, right? So, but let's go through a different reimagination of this, right? So let's pretend like we care about protecting our assets as small to mid-sized businesses, and or even just personal asset holders. And so now we go through the same thing. I won't go through it, but bad guy threat actor shows up, password, blah, blah, blah. But instead at the end, after the password's placed in, once that's been successfully vetted, now the system's going to say for final verification, I'm going to send your cell phone a push notification, not a text message. This is going to be a pre-planned app that you have on your phone, whether that's Microsoft Authenticator or Octo or a whole different various myriad of those, right? And, the threat actor gets nervous. They're like, oh my God, this is not great. This is unfortunate, right? So you should have that notification now. Meanwhile, Sally gets the notification and she's angry. She's like, I didn't sign into my bank. This is not true. X, no. And what happens is Sally keeps her money and she's laughing at the threat actor. And more importantly, she can start changing passwords because she realized, as my son said, get wrecked. But she realized that she's been compromised and she can make a change. And so it's about awareness and context, right? And so when we start talking about multi-factor, what we really mean as security professionals is we mean that we're going to combine some of all the things you see on your screen. TOTP, like you can see where I'm pointing, TOTP, PIN numbers, a text message sent to your phone, a push notification, which is a great one right now, and some more esoteric things like dwell time and flight time, which is how long do I push down my keys and how long before I get to the next key, right? As some calculations for machine learning. The other thing is, the eye scans and maybe two-factor codes and maybe even escalating controls where if it's something much larger or if it's the bank and it's your wire transfer for $10 million, maybe we should have at least 3 factors present or 4 factors present. And so the other thing that I kind of want to keep in mind, and I'll go into this at a later time, is that there are varying degrees of kind of risks and rewards of each of the varying different multi-factor types that we can use. And some in positive and negative flow of value and being compromised. And the reason for that is the threat actors are absolutely trying to outwit us and overcome the controls we place that try to keep our money and our health and our business safe. And so just keep in mind that when people are asking you to use multi-factor authentication, it is probably the single most important thing you can do to give context, awareness, and the ever chance of you protecting yourself from a threat actor that's really concerted on taking your money and your assets. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something. Please feel free to comment. Definitely subscribe and like. I really thank you so much.